Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is Scrap Fabric Love, and today I'm welcoming you to my new look sewing room. Yep, I've had another epic clear out, furniture rearrange, just all the things. I've done a sewing room makeover essentially. So I'm going to show you all the things that I changed, all the things I kept the same, and hopefully one or two of those ideas will spark something for your own sewing space. If you're new to the channel, I make scrap quilts. I don't follow a lot of quilting rules, and that includes tidying up very much at all. Well, sort of. I tend to get kind of head down and engrossed in whatever I'm making, whatever project I'm in the middle of, and I will throw something on the floor, shove something in a corner, everything goes everywhere. And then I finish the project, I look up, and I'm like, what on earth just happened here? And then I do a great big sewing room, like tidy up, put everything back where it's supposed to go, and then the cycle starts again. So this is what it looked like last week when I finished a quilt project. This kind of thing kind of builds up over time, and I leave it, and I'm tripping over cables and stepping on pins and all sorts of things. And then I will just go, okay, I need to sort this, and I'll spend an evening sweeping up, tidying, putting things back away, all of that stuff. And then I start a new project, and that's usually my process, and it usually works fine. But every couple of years, something comes over me and the tidying turns into something else. So if you like a good sewing room makeover video, you're in luck, because I've done this a few times. I love a good room makeover, and my sewing room has had more than its fair share of makeovers. This is the picture from the brochure before we bought this house in 2016. The whole house was a project, but this room was unfortunately the smoking room for the older gentleman who lived in the house before we did. So there was a lot of work to be done to get this room livable again. The room is 3.8 meters by 5 meters, so like 12.5 by 17 foot, something like that. It was used as a kind of living room, TV room, dining room kind of thing for the first couple years we were in the house. But once COVID hit and I needed a sanctuary, I took over the room and made it my sewing crafting space so I could do this. This is probably my first sewing room makeover. Some of you really long-time watchers might recognize this view of the room. And then, of course, it descended into chaos again, and I redid it again. And all of those changes are documented in the other videos on the channel. But more recently, you might have seen my sewing room looking more like this. And it's been that way for a good while until it descended into this. And when it gets this bad, every once in a while, my brain says, a tidy up's not enough. It's got to be a total overhaul. I think part of my brain thinks that if I move things around, I'll never get it messy again. I know by now that's not true, but it's still, I find it quite renewing and invigorating to kind of think, do I really want to still keep storing this here or that there? Do I still want to sit here with my sewing machine? What can I change? What could make this work better for me? I love that process, and I love doing it all at once. Not like, let's think about it and change one thing and come back and do another. Longtime watchers to the channel will maybe recognize where I'm sitting as the window in my sewing room and the bench that I've had. It's like a great big storage bench that I've had in this room for years. And it used to be up against this window, and I used to be sitting here when I was doing a video chatting. And then a couple of years ago, I moved it, and then it was behind my sewing machines, and it was up against a wall. So then the background for my videos changed because I like to sit on the bench, basically. But anyway, it's back in the window. But nothing else is the same as it ever was before. So as I said, this makeover didn't start out that way. This was just me tidying up. There was no intention here of redoing the whole room. I just thought that cupboard wasn't working for me anymore. It had too many books, too many magazines that I don't use, all sorts of stuff shoved into it. So I was emptying it all out. I even found some vodka that my uncle gave me that I forgot about. And then I started thinking, this is kind of when the cogs started going. Because I was shoving myself in to try to pass the Moxie to try and get, which is my long arm there, to try and get to that cupboard. And I was like, ugh, this is annoying. And so then I started measuring stuff. And this is literally the moment that I decided I was going to change the whole room. All right, so I've decided that I'm going to move these bookcases over. I don't know how to point. There, one over there, maybe one over there. Can't figure out how to point here, but anyway, one either side of the window, I'm thinking, maybe, and not sure where else. Anyway, I'm gonna move them. So I've started taking down the boxes that were up on top. They're kind of all, everything is kind of piled here. And it's going to be a great big mess in the middle of the room before I finish. And then I can put, my favorite bit is putting everything back onto the bookcases nice and tidy. So yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm going to take all this stuff down and unscrew these bookcases from the wall and start moving them. And then moving the Moxie. So I'm thinking the Moxie's going to go here, like from there across there. That's how I'll just show you. I'll just do it and I'll show you. The other thing about moving these bookcases is that, can you see they're on a corner there? So this is like something you can do with Billy bookcases. You get this little attachment and it goes kind of between those two and they connect to each other and everything. But it means there's a gap behind that corner. And so I've lost several things down there over the years. I've like put them on top of the bookcase to store them and then just pushed them too far and they've gone down the back. I don't remember what any of them were, but I can remember exclaiming when it happened. So when I move the bookcases, I will see what it was that I lost. So that's good. So I started by kind of sort of moving the Moxie out the way and then pushing the bench, which I did not empty. So it was very full and heavy to the back of the room. Just to kind of get that bit out the way first. And then, of course, emptying all the bookshelves of all of this stuff. So all of this is just going in the middle of the room. There's no, it's just becoming harder and harder to walk around and do anything. And then I'm just unscrewing the bookcases to start moving them. And before you ask, yes, I have a husband. No, he doesn't help with stuff like this. He's not a DIY guy. It stresses him out. So I do this stuff on my own. So here is what I think I lost behind there. Looks like, I don't know what it is. Some orphan blocks and I want this. This is some scraps from my dad's old clothes. Okay, cool. And the lid of a box. Okay, cool. Got that anyway. And behind the other one, as well as a bunch of dust, I've got an empty After 8 tin and an entire Moda scrap bag. Yep. It was just behind the bookcase. Interesting. So this project started during the school day when the kids were at school, and then obviously had to continue it into the evening once I got them to bed. So that's me in my pajamas moving the Moxie, just pushing and pulling it. I will tighten the screws before I use it again, and just determined to move the furniture before the end of the night. So this is where I got to last night at about 12:30. Still all this mess I have to sort, which just sort of got, some of it was on the floor before and some of it happened with moving things. Anyway, so some of it has found homes. I've got some of the fabric up on the shelves and some stuff over here. I will talk through what I've changed that I think is going to work better for me at the end once I've sorted everything out. But by last night, I had moved the desk, the two sewing desks over there. I still haven't quite worked out where cables and things are going to go. I don't know if I like where I've put the printer, which is kind of like at the end between the Moxie and the sewing desk. Anyway, but the key task for this morning is to sort out all of this stuff, and then I can see where I am in terms of arranging furniture and cables and all those sorts of things. So in the midst of all of this, I decided, why not make myself a new design wall at the same time? So I bought these sticky back felt bulletin board hexagons and spent far too long working out how I was going to put them on the wall. About 4 packs of 21. I'll put a link to whatever I can find that's similar in the description. I bought these on Amazon in the UK, but I'll see what links I can find and put them in the video description box. But basically, you just stick them to the wall. And they're felt, so quilt blocks stick to them without any pins. but because they're also meant to be bulletin boards, I can use pins on them if I want to, which is important for me in a design wall because I do foundation paper piecing. So sometimes I've got paper on the back of my blocks that I want to put up on the wall, and I don't necessarily want to take the paper off yet. So anyway, so that's why I don't just like hang a flannel sheet on the wall like some people do. I know that would work for just regular quilt blocks, but for my purposes, I want something I can either put quilt blocks on or stick pins in. So this is the solution I've gone for. Plus, I think it looks a bit more fun. I do have an older video about how I DIY'd a design wall out of cardboard, batting, and flannel previously. It's on my other wall. I'm keeping it up there because if I take it off, I would probably lose some plaster, I think. So I'm still going to use that, but it's not as accessible because it's now behind the long arm. So I'm not going to use it for sort of design. I'm going to use it to sort of pin up things that I'm happy to stay there for a bit longer. So I'll show you all that when I do the room reveal at the end and give you my little tour. But basically, they went up pretty easy. The adhesive was good. I don't know though if they're designed to be butted up next to each other in this way, or if they're meant to be more spread out, because I had to sort of squish some of them in a bit. I'll show you what I mean when I show you closer up later on. And I've ordered another pack because I didn't quite have the number of colors I needed to do what I want. So it's going to be a little bit bigger once I get that last pack of felt notice boards in the post. I'm still missing those little empty spaces where I'm going to fill it with the yellow and the gray. But I just want to show you how well this works in the meantime. These are the window seat blocks. So this is the group quilt we're doing for Scrap Club. So this isn't necessarily how these blocks are going to go, but let me just show you. So, and there are a few places where it's kind of jutting out or it's a little bit not flat because of the way I put them in. I think if you did it more carefully, it might look better, but it's still going to work. It's going to be fine. So this is 4 packs of the hexagons up in the wall at the moment, and I've got a 5th one, as I said, coming. So I think in total it came to just under 80 pounds, so that's British money. So it's not super cheap, but for the way it looks and the way it works, I'm kind of pretty happy with it. So here is the finished room. I'll do a little pan around and then I'll talk about the stuff that I changed that I think is going to be useful for me. It's kind of the time of day where the sun is streaming in there. Definitely getting a lot more light without the long arm in front of the window anyway. And then I won't subject you to that great big light over there, but basically that's the way it looks. And then I have this great big floor space, which is one of the things I'm happiest about. But anyway, I'll start with the design wall. So that is this over here. So I got another pack of the hexagons and filled in those holes. So this is not quite a full 5 packs. I still have some extra. So, and that's about as high as I can reach with my hand without getting on a ladder. So that's about as high as I want it, I think. So it's pretty good. So I showed you before it was finished how it sticks. There's a few places where it's maybe not perfect where I put it together, and had to squeeze things in. You can see a bit of it there, but I'm pretty happy with it. And I think it looks a little more interesting than the one I made myself, although I'm keeping that one. So that's the old design wall over there that I DIY'd. I can still get to it if I kind of crawl under the long arm and up through that gap, and I can still put some stuff on. Right now it's just got cards on it, so I'm not going to put anything on it that I want to take off and on a lot, obviously, but anyway, I can still use it. And I'm leaving these walls blank where the bookcases used to be. That was where all the fabric used to be, to kind of encourage myself to make some quilted wall art. That's the thinking. And this bookcase is the one that's probably the least finished. I've ordered a couple more shelves for it so that I can like put one there and put something else in there. But basically all my threads over there at the moment, and stuff for the Moxie. So I've got like the ruler base and the bobbin winder and all that kind of stuff is kind of where I would need it. Still have too much stuff under the long arm, of course, but it's a little neater and it's not getting in the way of anything, so that's fine. My little kind of office station is over here by the sewing desks. So that's like just boring printer and a few other storage containers underneath. It's just another IKEA unit basically. But of course, the best bit is having my 2 sewing desks. So that's the Janome 1600 QC. So that's the straight stitch machine. And that's the Pfaff Quilt Expression 720 in the horn table with the flat. So they both have the flat top, which I really like. And obviously if I took down some of these flaps, I could have even more floor space here if I needed it. So the thing about the floor space, I know it sounds ridiculous. The whole point of people having design walls like this is you would design your quilt up there. But I tend to use the design walls more for like blocks or bits of things to get ideas. And when I'm actually going, how am I going to lay out a whole quilt? I do it on the floor and I'm happy with that. So I just need as much space as I can get. And also I have my giant cutting mat on the floor as well. But anyway, so this is, I guess, the little sewing area with all of the storage. The bench I did not sort through this time. So it's still got all sorts of stuff in it. It's got like, what does it have? Oh, the kids' old clothes that like one day will be a quilt, yarn, Christmas fabric, can't remember what else, but like lots. It's stuffed in there anyway. But so what I'm keeping in terms of storage solutions that I did last time is I'm still sorting by color and I'm still using my little baskets. Let me just show you here with the elastics. So the orange is obviously overflowing, and I didn't go through and like make these baskets neater. I could do that, but let's be realistic about how they're going to end up. But it's basically my little fabric paint box of colors. That's just a lavender bag because we get lots of moths in Edinburgh. Anyway, so I would just like poke through there and find what I want. And what I did change though about the way I'm storing my fabric is last time I used like a piece of cardboard to fold the larger yardage to the set size of the bookshelf and put it underneath the baskets. But I literally haven't touched that fabric since I made that video because it's too intimidating when it's so perfectly folded. And also I'm just more comfortable with smaller bits of fabric anyway. So I've decided to roll those bigger pieces in the same way as these, so I can kind of see them. Because they don't look as super neat, they're not as intimidating to take down and use. I'm hoping. We'll see how that goes. And then the other thing I'm doing is storing the crumb box that goes with the color as near as I can to that fabric. So this is the yellow. So it's just little crumbs and bits and pieces from my crumb blocks. Previously, I had like a whole big shelf of these boxes, and it was just a little bit too fiddly to take them all out and they'd get in each other's way. So I couldn't fit them all on the shelf with the right color. So like brown's up with green, but that's fine. And then various other, bits and pieces are on shelves, but basically I've got my color coordinating going on. And then this is the cupboard I really couldn't get much access to before because the Moxie was right in front of it. So I could get to it, but I had to like squeeze in. It was full of quilt books that I don't really reference all that much, and too many quilt magazines that, you can't save them all. So I'm probably going to either sell or donate the quilt magazines. I've already sold 4 of the quilt books and I've got the others listed different places. So hopefully I'll get some money for those. And then I've put the ones that I'm keeping over on that bookcase, just a few. But anyway, over here, I've got my AccuQuilt and my dies. That gray basket down there has got big pieces of fleece for quilt back. These 2 have quilt backing fabric. That's got like scraps that have fusible on. So if I've put fusible on the back of a piece of fabric and then cut something out for applique, the scraps go in there. So if I'm ever collage quilting or anything like that. And then just other bits and, packing pieces and things. I got this new trolley just from Amazon. And I've got like my iron down the bottom. And then the idea is that I can also use the top of this as well as the rest for storage for my recording stand. Because when I put it on the sewing table over here, sometimes if I'm sewing too fast, it kind of jiggles and you guys are like, oh, the camera's shaking. So I'm going to try and put this little trolley thing where I need it when I'm recording. That's the idea. And then it's also obviously still storage. So I thought that could kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. And it fits in there. And then here is just as it was. But the things that I've changed, I suddenly twigged that I could store my cutting mat and some of my pressing mats in here. I don't know why I haven't been doing this the whole time. Anyway, so I'm doing that. And I have like rulers down the side with little hooks. And then I even went so far as to reorganize my pins and my drawer and stuff. This will not stay this way for very long at all. But anyway, looks nice right now, doesn't it? Yeah. And the other thing that I'm trying out is this. So I previously had a great big laundry hamper. I'll show you a picture of all the trimmings from my sewing room. I don't like to throw anything out. So I like to use it for stuffing, for cushions or bean bags or soft toys or whatever. But like there's only so many giant bean bags one house needs. So my idea to stop it from running away from me is to put, so this is like a bag that something came in that I bought, but it's fabric, kind of a thin, I don't know what you call that. Anyway, so I've taped it to the table. My trimmings are going in there. And then when it's full, the idea is I will sew it up and it will be a cushion insert. And then I've got a reason to make a cushion and then give it away or put it somewhere in the house that's more useful. And then I'll replace it with another one. And if I don't have one of these bags, from packing, I can just sew one. I could just make one like this and tape it up. So we'll see whether that lasts either. But for right now, I'm liking the idea of keeping my trimmings kind of manageable and contained, but still not having to throw them out. So that's the plan there. Nothing has changed there. That's the same quilt hangers I had before. The same quilt hanging up. That's pretty much the only thing I didn't have to move. So yeah. And I'm really liking just the light, especially from the window. There's definitely more of it without the Moxie in the way. It feels like everything's a little bit more accessible at the moment. And yeah, I don't know if it's going to keep me neater. Probably not, but for a few weeks it will. So I hope you enjoyed having a nose around my new look sewing room, placing bets now on how long I can keep it tidy. Probably not very long. I'm doing really well for now, but it's only been a couple of days. Anyway, I hope you got at least one idea for your own sewing space. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you liked this video, please consider it. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for spending time with me. Bye.